The US government has a massive hidden agenda with crypto, and Russia just revealed what it is. I know it's a wild source for crypto news, but one of Putin's advisors just dropped a bomb. He's claiming that the US government has this secret strategy to shove its $37 trillion debt into stablecoins, then basically devalue that debt on the blockchain and start from scratch. Today, we examine whether the accusations may hold true, what it would mean for Bitcoin and our portfolios, and why that US debt machination may be the least bad option, as the alternative may require bloodshed. As usual, I'm not giving you any financial advices here, and I encourage you to do your own research. So, the story starts with this. Putin's advisor, Alexander Kobyakov, who says Washington wants to erase part of its massive debt through stablecoins. His claim is that once the debt is on-chain, the US can manipulate or devalue it, effectively paying back pennies on the dollar. All that at the expense of the world. Let's entertain the idea coming from Russia with love. You know how the Trump administration was very enthusiastic and quick to pass the Genius Act, for example, part of the whole pro-crypto agenda. Well, here's the dark undertone. The Genius Act basically forces stablecoins to be backed by short-term T-bills and cash. Standard Chartered and Bernstein project the stablecoin sector to reach between $2 to $4 trillion by 2028. That means $2 to $4 trillion in new demand for government debt to back this up. On paper, that seems like a win. In reality, however, it's a feedback loop. Here's the flywheel. Crypto demand fuels stablecoins. Stablecoins buy more T-bills. More T-bills mean deficits and debt. The government become basically addicted to speculative capital flows. And the only safe haven from that is Bitcoin. So demand for crypto, Bitcoin in particular, grows too. There's your feedback loop. But should we, as crypto natives and investors, be worried? I'll tell you in a bit. But first, about the Russians. By exposing these US debt tactics, Moscow highlights American fiscal desperation and seeks to undermine the global confidence in the holy US dollar, and also to disrupt American influence as a whole. But let me ask you, if Russia actually believes the US debt devaluation scenario will play out, isn't the most logical move for them to go out there and snatch up all the Bitcoin they can before the wheels started turning? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious about your thoughts. Now, this whole story is like a Pepsi advisor saying Coca-Cola is bad for you. It would create some unrest, but you would want proof to believe it, right? And that's fair game. The claim of the Russians, in this case, will have a negligible effect on the market at best. The important effect will come if the claim turns out to be true. In my opinion, there's a very real chance that it will turn out to be true. But why? America is up to its neck in debt. At $37 trillion and counting, that's about $280,000 per household. Interest payments now exceed the entire defense budget. Traditional buyers of treasuries, these are foreign governments, pension funds, they're getting nervous about dollar exposure too. The Fed cannot let bond auctions just fail. They don't seem to have a way out through conventional monetary and fiscal policy anymore. The hole only gets deeper. Something radical must happen. Radical, but not unprecedented. The US government has devalued debt before by getting rid of the gold standard in 1933 and of the Bretton Woods system in 1971. Using crypto as the next vehicle just fits this pattern. Find a new medium to wipe out the debt and scam the creditors. If Washington cannot inflate, restructure, or sell enough bonds, and if the Russian expose is also false, history shows there are two painful directions for the US. One is the way of austerity or even default. Austerity measures would involve massive tax hikes and spending cuts that would crush growth and could possibly trigger bad social unrest. An outright default, on the other hand, would wipe out bondholders, freeze financial markets, and plunge the biggest economy in the world into chaos. But to the neutral observer, these still seem more acceptable as compared to the other way Washington could take. And B, that's war as debt reset. In the 20th century, 2 world wars helped major powers reset debt burdens. After World War I, Germany's reparations fueled hyperinflation and ultimately World War II. The Allied powers, in their turn, used victory spoils and post-war settlements to reduce the debt-to-GDP ratios. Who's to say that, if pushed against the wall of bankruptcy, the United States of America won't decide to begin importing some freedom into the Middle East or somewhere in Africa or on the Russian-Ukrainian front? Now, these stablecoin crypto shenanigans of the US that the Russian advisor Kobikov claims are in place don't seem so bad anymore. After all, they could avoid outright default or the seemingly unthinkable scenario of a large-scale military conflict. But how do you imagine the largest economy, the most powerful military in the world, conceding default? In reality, that is the truly unthinkable case. As much as I hate to say it, a war conflict seems much more realistic in comparison, much more desirable even, from the standpoint of the US global hegemony. When you think in these terms, turning US debt into digital tokens and then cutting the amount owed a bit later might be painful, yes, but at least it keeps the peace. It keeps us alive. Okay, this is turning into a bit of a Tucker Carlson segment, and that's not the intention, so like the video if you want to stay alive, I guess. Now, as I hinted at the beginning, we'll want to know what the impact on Bitcoin will be. Well, I'll give it to you straight. Bitcoin wins either way. Whether this crypto scheme aiming to erase the massive 35 trillion debt is real or not, Bitcoin stands to benefit. But how? A, if it's real, as long as the market is bullish, the stablecoin demand will keep growing. That will lead to demand for two things, as we said: more T-bills and more Bitcoin. And you know which one is capped at 21 million. And B, if the Russian expose is false, the US debt math still forces the Fed to print money to pay it off. That will keep inflating the dollar and keep boosting Bitcoin as a hedge. For you, for me, for businesses. In both scenarios, we get paid to hold Bitcoin. And that's the takeaway I want to leave you with. At the end, you may wonder, but if all this is true, how much Bitcoin should I actually own? Well, I recently made a video answering this exact question, and I'm sure the number that I arrived at will surprise you big time. So go check it out here and start stacking if you haven't reached the goal yet. See ya.